Our weight loss journeys are riddled with temptation. I know, Ruth knows, and I'm sure if you're here watching on your own weight loss journey, you know that there's food everywhere. So there's temptation everywhere. So we have to learn how to navigate the food.
So today we're going to give you 5 tips on actually how to navigate food when you're in those settings where you have those temptations coming at you at parties or events or wherever you go. There's always the temptation of food.
And I like to say, as believers, we have food everywhere. I've talked before about the example of like our church, we have a pancake breakfast for Easter. Like everywhere you go, there's food.
Every Bible study or every home group or every life group you go to, what is it? Somebody's favorite dessert.
Right now, even our church, after every service on Sunday, we have ice cream treats afterwards for fellowship, because I think the word fellowship is almost synonymous with food in our current culture.
So that's why we need, and you probably need as well, we need to know how to navigate our temptations when food is bombarding us.
We sure do.
So let's dive right in. Tip number 1 is actually to make a plan before you get to the party or you get to the event or you get to the fellowship or you get to the church. We have to have a plan so that we know exactly what we're going to do, and we want to carry out our plan well.
Exactly. And we like to think about having a plan. Often we know that there's going to be food around. Sometimes it's a surprise, but most of the time we know ahead of time that we're going to have some decisions to make regarding food. And I want to just say, our Should I Eat That guide is a fantastic way for you to make a plan ahead of time. And so we will give you the link below for that free download. It's a 5-step decision-making guide called Should I Eat That? You can get it at shouldideatthat.com. And it will help you make a plan for what you will do when there is that temptation of food around, because we need to know if we are going to choose to eat it or not. And if we are going to choose to eat it, does that decision align with our goals? Are we choosing it, or do we have this mentality that we're cheating?
Yeah.
And are we going to actually be able to manage our portion size and enjoy what we are choosing to have? Otherwise, we might as well just say no thanks.
Otherwise, there's always guilt and shame, and that's not helping our whole self-identity, our self-worth. So shouldideatthat.com. It's a great decision-making guide, but that's tip number 1 is make a plan and follow through, execute your plan well.
Okay. And then feel good about it.
That's right. Tip number 2 is to actually move away from the food table. Get out of the proximity of the food.
Yeah, exactly. And let's talk about that example of the popsicles and ice cream bars after church, okay? If you stand right beside the table where they're handing out the popsicles and the ice cream, do you think you're going to cave? Probably. If you move away and it's not within your reach, if you're not facing it, staring it down the entire time, the chance of you being successful with saying no thank you is a lot higher.
That's right, because our willpower wanes really quickly. And we always talk about wisdom over willpower. And that's where that decision-making guide comes into play. We have to have the wisdom to make the right decisions.
Absolutely. And I also just want to say, in regards to making a plan, often for me, and you can let us know in the comments if this resonates with you too. Often for me, when I do make a plan ahead of time, I can let go of the obsessive thoughts about food as well, because I already know what I'm going to do. So I don't have to be standing there thinking, am I going to have the ice cream? Am I going to have the popsicle? Who's going to be watching? Am I going to have it? Am I not going to have it? And that obsessive thought can just carry us down into a really horrible spiral. But when you've made the decision ahead of time, and then when you stay away, when you walk away from where the food actually is, you can let the thoughts go.
That's right. So tip number 3 is to actually hold on to a water glass, a coffee or a tea mug.
Yeah. Bring a water bottle with you.
Or if you're at a party where you're having a drink, if you're even holding a wine glass, sip it slowly and savor it. Don't gulp it. Just hold on to that. And then you can refill it with water. No one will know the difference.
And it feels a lot less awkward. It feels more like you're part of what's happening, even if you just have a cup in your hand. It's amazing how that just makes you feel like you're part of it.
That's right. So that's tip number 3. And tip number 4 is to indulge in the vegetables. If you're going to indulge in something, make it something healthy.
Yeah.
And usually there are vegetables.
Exactly.
Or
Or a fruit tray.
Yeah.
And if you have the opportunity to bring something yourself, that's a great reason to bring a veggie tray.
That's right, because the host usually doesn't mind. In fact, if you bring a veggie tray, you will notice that the veggie tray gets eaten.
Yeah, almost every time. A lot of people are looking for the healthier options, but most of us don't have the foresight to think ahead and plan ahead to actually have the healthier stuff there, because the junk is just easier and more convenient a lot of the time. We think that, but it's not actually true, because it's just as easy to purchase a veggie tray at the grocery store as it is to buy a bag of chips.
And if you eat the veggies, you're going to feel way better about yourself.
Yeah.
And your body's going to thank you.
Exactly.
Tip number 5, our final tip, is to actually focus on the fellowship. What a concept.
We have completely lost sight of this in our, current Christian culture. So often, I shouldn't say we've totally lost sight of it, but a lot of us have lost sight of the fact that fellowship does not mean food. Food can be part of fellowship, but they're not the same thing.
That's right.
And even, Ruth often talks about when you go out to a restaurant, rather than focusing on the food, focus on the fellowship of who you're there with. Focus on the ambiance of the restaurant. Focus on, the excitement of being somewhere exciting.
And really focus on the conversation.
Mhm.
Get your conversation meaningful, deep. Have some questions in your mind that you want to discuss before you go. That's part of making a plan, because if you actually start, working through a deep conversation, it will be a blessing to the whole group.
Exactly. So let's do a quick recap on those 5 points, because like we said, we know that on a weight loss journey, in fact, we like to call it the narrow road, because the narrow road is narrow for a reason, because weight loss is a challenging journey. And so if you are on a weight loss journey, you are on that narrow road, and we know there's temptation around. And so let's recap those 5 points, because they are so helpful.
Tip number 1, make a plan ahead of time and then execute it and feel good about it.
Exactly.
Tip number 2, move away from the food.
Get out of there.
Tip number 3, hold on to a coffee mug.
Tip number 4, eat the veggies.
And tip number 5,
go for it.
Focus on the fellowship, not the food. That sounds so simple, and it is, but it's not always easy. When we have those obsessive thoughts that are ruminating through our mind, it's not always easy.
Yeah.
But we know that with God in the journey, it is possible. And if you use that decision-making guide, it's going to even be easier than what we're saying.
Exactly. So go to shouldiEatThat.com and you can grab our free Should I Eat That decision-making guide. It's that 5 steps that are really going to help you, and it helps to take the pressure off. It helps to let the obsessive thoughts go. It helps you know if you are making decisions that align with your goals, because sometimes we are going to say yes, and that's okay, but we want to make sure we manage our portion size and enjoy what we say yes to.
And remember, treat your body like a temple,
Not a trash can.